half of our circulating testosterone as women is made in our ovaries. So as we start to go through perimenopause and estrogen and progesterone goes down, guess what else goes down too? And so that can be responsible for brain fog, body composition changes, no libido, a variety of things. A general feeling of well-being. Testosterone's there for a reason.
I would love, though, to have my brain back. I feel like all the adaptogenic mushrooms in the world cannot cover the amount that I've lost.
Yeah.
In fact, it's a funny thing that in my family, my girls and my husband, if I'm talking and I pause, they know to wait a full 5 minutes because it might take me that long to remember my train of thought because I'm losing it. And, I love words. And one of the things I'm known for, in the sort of food judging world is my words and the way that I describe food. And I will tell you, it has been terrifying to have those moments happen on camera where I'm like, oh no, I've lost the word. And there are 100 people in the studio waiting for me to catch it back.
Yeah.
That is terrifying.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Paula Ferry Show. I'm your host, Paula. All month long, we have been talking about perimenopause. We kicked off the series talking about how the most change happens during perimenopause. And then the next episode was how to prepare for this time in our life. And last week, we talked about the controversial aspect of weight management and GLP-1s. And this week, we are talking about testosterone. And could it be the game changer for all of us going through perimenopause and menopause and hormone replacement therapy? And also creatine's having a moment. We'll dive into that. But before we jump into today's conversation with Dr. Jen Ashton, who is the founder of Agenda and is devoted everything she's doing to women's health and nutrition, specifically in these perimenopause and menopause years, as well as Aarti Sequeira, who is a mom and a host at the Food Network, I want to play this clip from Dr. Kelly Casperson, who is an OB-GYN, and she's talking about testosterone. Not only could it be the game changer, but why we need fundamental change at the government level, because as of now, as many women are on testosterone as men, but it is not FDA approved. I repeat, it is not FDA approved. So listen to this clip from Dr. Kelly Casperson.
In my clinic, I prescribe testosterone, an FDA approved, naturally occurring hormone, covered by insurance. But all of those prescriptions, they're for men. In fact, 1 in 5 men are diagnosed with hypogonadism, a condition where their bodies stop making enough testosterone. Nearly all women experience the same hormone decline when they live long enough. Men have more than a dozen FDA-approved formulations. But when a woman asks for the same hormone, I have to tell her, there's no FDA-approved dose for you. The FDA is failing women by denying access to a hormone their bodies naturally produce. The FDA has rejected 2 attempts at female dose testosterone, not because the products didn't work, but because they cited insufficient safety data, a legacy of the WHI backlash. But testosterone has been used in women since the 1940s, and trans men receive 10 times the dose. That is not a lack of evidence. It's a regulatory and equity failure.
So there you heard it from Dr. Kelly Casperson. Testosterone is not only essential, but there is an inequity and a gap because it's not approved for women by the FDA. Again, it is not approved for women by the FDA. And yet as many women are on testosterone as men. I am one of them, but because it's not approved, I've had to justify to my provider. I've had to microdose, and I've had to pay out of pocket, 100% out of pocket, and it is not cheap. In this episode, as we continue this month-long series on perimenopause, Dr. Jen is going to share with you why she's optimistic about the new FDA commissioner and the efforts within the FDA to get it approved for women. She's going to discuss the pros and the cons of testosterone. And if you've been hearing a lot about creatine, I know I have. It's like creatine, fiber, protein, but creatine is definitely having a moment. I always thought you took it to bulk up, but we're going to discuss the benefits of creatine for perimenopausal and menopausal women. As always, I encourage you to sign up for my personal newsletter at paulaferrisofficial.com. Again, that's paulaferrisofficial.com. We keep these conversations going. You'll also get a sneak peek at what's coming up next month and the month after on the podcast. Stick around after the conversation. I'll share my takeaways, including more on my personal experience with testosterone. But without further ado, here's episode 4 of our month-long series on perimenopause. We're talking about testosterone. Could it be the game changer? It is time to jump into this conversation. A couple of episodes ago, Aarti and I talked about the 700 things that we're doing to help us through this phase of life. For me, testosterone is a new one. Also creatine. I always thought creatine was like, what you wanted to take when you wanted to bulk up. But I guess I'm excited for you to talk about that, Dr. Jen. But for me, testosterone, I think it could be the game changer. I've been on it a couple of months. I do notice a ton more mental clarity. Right. I did it for hair loss reasons as well and metabolic reasons, but it's been such a struggle. I felt like I had to justify it to my provider. Then there's no FDA approved dosage, which is another issue. There's like 12 FDA approved doses for men. It's not FDA approved for women. And then it's been all out of pocket. So everybody listening has heard the clip from Dr. Kelly Casperson talking about how essential it is, how as many women are on testosterone as men, but there is this gap because the FDA has not approved any sort of dosing for us. We have to justify it. We have to pay out of pocket. So I know, like for me, I think this has been a total game changer. Aarti, you have not really, and I'm Lebanese, so I've always had really high levels of testosterone. I mean, I tell my kids,
Me too.
when I die, you have to wax my mustache. Okay, so let's just go right there. Let's just leave it at that. But you haven't tried testosterone.
No,
and often when we want it, we have to. It's only, I think, approved. They only have government approved doses in a couple of countries, and that's for sexual desire, to increase your sexual appetite. But can we talk about this? First of all, why is it not FDA approved? And are you, Dr. Jen, are you optimistic that it might be approved under this new FDA director and administration?
I am optimistic. Why it's not approved is plain and simple, just because historically we don't value or prioritize women's health in this country. That is a fact. That's been borne out, pardon the pun, in our horrendous maternal mortality numbers. So if we don't value pregnant women and their health and well-being, we're certainly not going to value perimenopause and menopausal women and their well-being. Everything that Dr. Kelly Casperson has said about testosterone and others is accurate. There's no reason why. This is not a new discovery. This is not new that women have been using it. Why we don't have studies, and by the way, it's not an expensive hormone. It is if you have to pay for it compounded in a different dose and whatever.
That's what I'm doing. I have to go to a compound pharmacy.
Right. Otherwise, it is, it's not new. We should have a wealth of data on this in women for various endpoints. And I will say that it's not a surprise to me that you had to convince a doctor, because it's not part of the formal training or education that doctors have who treat women. And in defense of those doctors, a reputable doctor is not going to prescribe something that she or he has no experience with,
Right.
or formal knowledge or training about. That would be bad medicine.
Yeah.
So it's a unfortunate situation, and I will say that in general, and I am not a testosterone expert, right? But I will say that just what I do know about it for women who are perimenopausal and postmenopausal is that it can be absolutely safe and effective in some women in the right dose. However, in addition, just like our conversation previously about GLP-1s, it is not candy, and it has to be prescribed and managed by someone who is informed and experienced with that, because there can be side effects that are at best undesirable for women and at worst dangerous. So, women need to be counseled that if they take too much, it can result in hirsutism, which is increased body hair. It can result in acne on the face, back, or chest. It can result in clitoromegaly, a growing of the clitoris, a deepening of the voice, an adverse change in lipid profile.
What?
What did you just say?
It can affect cholesterol, and it can potentially increase the risk of certain cancers like breast cancer if given in the wrong dose. Again, when you speak about medicine and medications, it is so nuanced. That's why it takes 4 years to get an MD and another 3+ years, in my case, 4+, to get board certified in certain specialties. And endocrinology is generally 5 or 6 years after medical school. So, this is why it's not that simple. You can't just Google testosterone for women, good or bad. Absolutely, it can be safe and effective.
I would never do that, by the way. I would never, ever.
Not you.
Never.
Not you.
But I will, I've got to say, though, like, I have had to be my own advocate through this journey. And I think most women have had to be their own advocate. I know you have strong feelings about all that, Jen. We should be our own advocate anyway. But testosterone was never part of the conversation when I went to my OB, when I went to Alloy. They said if I needed to be on it, I had to have somebody else prescribe it because I guess it's a controlled substance. I don't know what they classify it under, but it is not FDA approved for women. I feel like it's definitely been something I had to push for. I had to research, but it was my other friends who were on it that said, you have to, it is the game changer for them. And I will say, I have so much mental clarity. I'm not at a loss for words anymore. I feel like my husband says my brain's on fire. Even in that video, that audio clip that I played of Dr. Kelly Kasperson saying, the German I learned from elementary school and high school is back. Like I feel so much mental clarity. So my question, Aarti, like has anybody ever recommended it to you? What have you been hearing about it? Because again, there's this stigma. Your voice is going to get really deep. What are you trying to be a man? Are you transitioning? Is like the first response I get from people. And not like, and so, but women have testosterone.
Yeah.
Yes. They
and
do.
It's on the demon drop during these years. So again, okay. So maybe Dr. Jen, you tell us in a second what is happening. We do have normal levels of testosterone usually until this period of our life and what it's important for. But Aarti has a provider. Any of your providers, anybody in the medical community ever mentioned it to you? Or how have you, what do you hear about it?
Yeah. I mean, I think they have, especially, the sort of doorbell for me that perimenopause was here, was that my testosterone, just demon dropped, as you say, and I've always, like you, had a very high level. So for it to fall, I was like, oh, this is actually really why I don't feel like myself, because I have known a couple of women in my life who had done it. So I already was sort of open to that idea. But the way that it was explained to me is that testosterone, it's strong, and because maybe there isn't enough study, as you said, Dr. Jen, on the right dosing for women with everything else that's going on. Cancer runs in my family, prostate cancer, those sorts of things. So I also need to watch out for those factors and how testosterone might contribute to those factors or affect those factors. So I have been slow to go there. I would love, though, to have my brain back. I feel like all the adaptogenic mushrooms in the world cannot cover the amount that I've lost.
Yeah.
In fact, it's a funny thing that in my family, my girls and my husband, if I'm talking and I pause, they know to wait a full 5 minutes because it might take me that long to remember my train of thought because I'm losing it. And, I love words. And one of the things I'm known for, in the sort of food judging world is my words and the way that I describe food. And I will tell you, it has been terrifying to have those moments happen on camera where I'm like, oh no, I've lost the word. And there are 100 people in the studio waiting for me to catch it back.
Yeah.
That is terrifying. And so just hearing you talk about it makes me go, well, maybe this is, but I'm scared because I did, like I struggled with facial hair and my whole life, and I don't want to go back there.
This is what advice I would give to you if you were sitting in my office, Aarti, to you, Paula, in my office, or by the way, if I were still on Good Morning America and I were talking about this topic. And we've covered this also in my newsletter because testosterone is a hot, trendy, buzzy kind of topic in the world of perimenopause and menopause. The good news, it goes back to my use of the word experiment being so powerful for women, right? As long as you have a partnership with a credentialed, credible medical professional, you can do your own experiment. And the basic principle of pharmacology is that you start at the lowest dose that works. So you don't start at a random high dose when you're talking about testosterone because there's no protocols for women, really, right? So you would start at the lowest dose and you follow your symptoms, your feelings, your responses to that dose with your healthcare provider. And the reality is that 50% of our testosterone as women comes from our ovaries. So
Wow.
you don't have to be
Repeat that, please. 50.
half of our circulating testosterone as women is made in our ovaries. So as we start to go through perimenopause and estrogen and progesterone goes down, guess what else goes down too? And so that can be responsible for brain fog, body composition changes, no libido, a variety of things, a general feeling of well-being. Testosterone's there for a reason. If you're feeling any of those things, of course, replacing or supplementing testosterone, even though, listen, off-label doesn't scare me as a doctor. Tons of things that we do every single day in this country in medicine are off-label.
Yeah.
Would it be ideal if we had formal studies and FDA approval and actual algorithms and protocols to follow? Yes,
Yeah.
that would be ideal. But just because something right now is off-label doesn't mean it's not an option for people. It just means you have to go about it with the right awareness and the right approach to be safe.
Yep.
And testosterone, like any hormone, if you start it and you don't like your response to it, you can discontinue it.
Mm-hmm.
And
Okay.
so nothing is written in stone. Nothing is, in concrete with respect to that or any other hormone. But it does have to be prescribed by someone who is experienced, credentialed, and familiar with it. And for a lot of women, it can be incredibly beneficial.
Okay, we have 60 seconds to wrap this conversation up. Tell us why creatine, because I've been taking it. I don't really know why I'm taking it, but everybody's taking it. Why?
Creatine monohydrate, 3 to 5 grams a day. That's the safe and studied dose. It is probably the most widely studied supplement in the world.
Okay.
We have 2 decades of good clinical data and research data on its benefits.
On men or women?
Both.
Okay.
Both. Of course, mostly it started with men, but now we have it on women. And it's something that you can get creatine from food. Our bodies will normally make some of it, but it disappears very quickly. And there's now a lot of very interesting and exciting data and research about the benefits of creatine for cognitive function for men and women.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is something that for body composition, for mood, for cognitive function and well-being, 3 to 5 grams a day is safe. All of the myths you hear about, water gain, hair loss, kidneys, are not happening at 3 to 5 grams a day.
Okay, that's good.
And this is something that, my husband takes 5 grams a day every single day in his protein smoothie for the last 2.5 years. And not only have I seen a difference in his body composition, I think just overall, it's part of a good beneficial, good beneficial.
Hey.
Yeah.
Hello.
Wow.
What just happened to Art? She just disappeared.
Dr. Jen just her eyebrows just,
I know.
they told a whole story right there.
But listen, this is just, it's not like this is rogue or, not backed by good science and
Yep.
data.
Okay. It's good to know.
This is just something that, and you're not going to bulk up or, and if you notice, by the way, that you might be holding on to 1 additional pound of water weight, then you can either drop the dose of creatine slightly or use it every other day, to mitigate those kind of side effects. But
Okay.
the vast majority of women will not have significant weight gain or any other problem with 3 to 5 grams a day.
That's great to know.
Thank you for addressing that.
And you may notice increased attraction to your partner if they take it. So awesome.
Tom walks around and says, "Body by Jen." I love it.
Oh my gosh, that's good. Oh, Tom's a lucky guy. All right, ladies, just one more conversation and then we'll put a button on the whole series. It's just been awesome. What a great conversation. Only one more to go in this month-long series on perimenopause. I know a lot of you listen to the podcast, but if you're watching on YouTube, yes, I finally got my you-know-what together. We moved a couple of weeks ago, almost a month ago now, and my office was a bit of a disaster. So finally got the sign up behind me, got some pictures on the wall, so things are coming together. I'm starting to feel settled in our new digs. And if you're wondering, she moved? Yes, but just 20 minutes closer into town to be closer to our kids' schools. Okay, so my main takeaways, Dr. Jen says that it isn't candy. Testosterone is not candy. It should be prescribed. It should be managed by someone because there can be side effects, but women need to be counseled on it if given in the wrong dose. Testosterone is something you will have to advocate for. Okay, this was nothing that was offered to me by my OB. It wasn't offered to me by Alloy, who I'm a big proponent of Alloy. It's telehealth, menopausal medicine and advice. Big fan of Alloy. I'll put a link to them in my show notes. But again, this is something you will have to advocate for because it's not approved by the FDA yet. So my OB-GYN actually wrote me a prescription, but I did feel like I had to justify it. And a lot of women feel that the only way to justify it is because they have decreased libido, right? And that's usually the stigma that testosterone falls under. But I wanted to take testosterone for weight gain and mental clarity and hair loss. Okay, so my experience with it, I'm taking a cream. I know this is TMI, but you guys, I'm kind of an open book on this. I just think the more we talk about all of this and we're honest with one another, the more we can help one another through this time in our lives. So I take a cream. I usually rub it on my forearm every single day, totally out of pocket. I have noticed that my brain is on fire, almost too much sometimes, but I have a lot more mental clarity. I haven't noticed really a difference on the scale, but my 2 main reasons were brain fog and hair loss. I lost all the hair on my arms when I was 40, so about 10 years ago. My hair is coming back. I don't want to say that I have new growth. It's just where the growth once was stagnated. It has been stimulated. So I'm not losing as much hair. My hair definitely feels a lot fuller and thicker. Don't judge what you're looking at now if you're watching on YouTube because I haven't washed it, nor have I styled it, but I will tell you, it feels thicker. It feels healthier. I have noticed a few more chin hairs and facial hairs, but look, I think for me, the pros outweigh all of the cons when it comes to testosterone. But again, it's only been 90 days. I have an appointment to go back with my doctor to make sure that I'm getting the right dose. All right, to put a little button on creatine, why creatine, which I found a really inexpensive option for creatine at Sam's Club, but it is the most widely studied supplement in the world. We're hearing a lot about creatine for perimenopausal and menopausal women, but Dr. Jen recommends 3 to 5 grams a day if you want to avoid some of the side effects. But she said you won't have significant weight gain or any of the other side effects if you stick to 3 to 5 grams a day. But again, listen to your body. Again, everyone is different. What's right for me, what's right for you is not right for the person next to you. So we all have an obligation to not only advocate for ourselves, but to speak up for ourselves and to listen to our body and know what's right and what's wrong. We are going to wrap up this series next week with a very real and raw and open, honest conversation about why we are more likely to take our lives as women between the ages of 45 and 50 than any other point in our lives. It's really those perimenopausal and menopausal years. So I want to tell you, if you are struggling a little bit, you're not alone. I promise you, there's so much hope that it can and it will get better, but talking about it is an important first step, and having an understanding of why this is such a stressful time in our lives and how perimenopause and everything else factors into some of those dark thoughts. But we are going to be exploring that as we wrap up the series and we continue to talk about it. And it's just been an honor to bring all of these conversations to you. I've learned so much, and I've been hearing so much from you guys, how this is helpful, and it means a lot, and it keeps this podcast going. Make sure you rate, review, subscribe, and please share this. Please share this with other women in your life so we can continue to have conversations like this, because we're going to keep talking about it. I'll see you next week as we wrap up our series on perimenopause. I know you guys thought you were done with me, but not quite yet. I have one more thing to tell you about. If you're watching on YouTube or you're listening on your favorite podcast platform, don't forget to subscribe to the show. I don't want you to miss a single beat or a single conversation. And remember, my DMs are always open. Tell me what you want to talk about.